Thank you all for coming tonight. You are going to be you're just in for like the greatest hour of your life. Brandolyn is so amazing. She really has been such a guide and an inspiration and leader to me in my work and my career, just everything. Brandolyn, like I've come to her sessions before and gone to her, like what was that one? I think it was like an Earth Day, like day retreat thing. Anyways, Brandolyn is a guide and a goddess and a leader and a best-selling author, and she hosted, was that 1 year or 2 years ago that was the Yes event?
That was a little over a year ago.
A little over a year ago, she had this big day-long event, or was it a 2-day event? I should get all these details straight. 2-day event, hundreds of women. She is just a transformational guide on a next level, and I am so grateful to be friends with her and get to have the opportunity to share her with all of you tonight. So thank you all for coming, and I will turn it over to Brandolyn.
Thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful group of ladies we have here. It's an honor to be with you all. So I'm a transformational coach and retreat host. I have a retreat company called The Shift Retreats, and author and columnist. So everything is under the umbrella of transformation and empowerment. The primary modalities that I work with, in case anyone's interested, is acceptance and commitment therapy, nonviolent communication, the work of Landmark, the work of Byron Katie, somatic healing, and neuro-linguistic programming. So if anybody hears something today that you're like, I'd be interested in learning more about that modality that perhaps it branches from, feel free to reach out to me and ask any questions about it so that I can direct you to additional resources. And in this workshop today, we are going to be having an interactive conversation, the more interactive, the better, in my mind, about what self-love and self-acceptance actually is and how we each can have a breakthrough in how we live self-love and self-acceptance. Before we get into that, I'd love to do a drop-in meditation. You all are, does that sound good?
Yeah.
And my air conditioning is pretty loud. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, it's totally good.
Okay. All right. So if we could each find ourselves in a comfortable seat, ideally sitting with feet flat on the floor, legs uncrossed, arms uncrossed, palms facing up on our thighs. And just taking a moment here to, and Tara, if you could mute everyone just for the meditation, that'd be great. Just taking a moment here to allow any intuitive
You just muted.
Wait. Brandon, I need you to unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So allowing the body to do any intuitive movements that it's asking for right now, with eyes closed, really dropping in and listening. Do the shoulders want to roll? Does the spine want to twist? Does the neck want to roll? Feeling gratitude that we have these bodies, that we're able to move all these ways. Big exhale here as we come back to stillness. And taking a moment to get present to whatever's alive in your body, in your mind, and in your emotions in this moment. So starting with the physical body and imagining that our awareness starts at the top of our head, and as if our awareness were honey that is slowly pouring down the body, feeling our awareness drip down from the top of the head, bringing that awareness down, spreading it throughout the body. And just noticing without judgment What is arising in the physical body in this now moment? Observing and naming sensations as we encounter them. Noticing subtle vibrations. Noticing where we feel the touch of our clothes or the touch of our chair underneath us. Noticing the different temperatures, the different places on our body is experiencing. And when this honey of your awareness has reached the tips of your toes, gently directing our attention to the emotional body, noticing what hints or flavors of different emotions might be present. And just noticing the quality of these emotions, the intensity, and gently allowing that awareness to fall away as well. Softly bringing our awareness to the mental body now. If the mind were a vast body of water, what quality would that water have in this moment? Would it be choppy, tumultuous, or a smooth, placid lake? Not judging or evaluating this, just simply noticing the quality of the mind in this moment. And then allowing that awareness to fade away. And finally, bringing our awareness to the breath body, the prana body, without trying to alter it or adjust it in any way. Just noticing the rhythm of your breathing. As it naturally rises and falls. And taking a moment to notice how all of these different layers of our being, the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the breath body, are all giving rise to one another simultaneously, are all in communication, communion with one another. And how combined they give this rich, multifaceted experience of aliveness in each moment. Taking a moment to reflect on which aspects of your being you were aware of before we dropped into this meditation and which you were not. Sometimes we're only present to the emotional body, and we're not present to the corresponding thought pattern or breath or physical sensations. Sometimes we're only aware of what's arising in the physical body and not aware of how that is echoing on each of the other layers of our being. And taking this final moment here to set an intention for yourself, knowing that this next hour will be focused on self-love and self-acceptance. Taking a moment to set an intention around what sort of breakthrough you would like to have in that area during our session today. And we'll take one more deep collective breath together. Breathing in, filling up as much as possible, and holding that expansiveness at the top. And then we'll do a collective sigh, exhale, ha. Whenever you're ready, gently opening your eyes and coming back to the space. I'd love to hear from a few of you what you noticed during that exercise, what you were aware of, any insights that came through. And you can either unmute yourself and share, or you can write something in the chat box. Yeah, is it Cassia? Cassia?
Oh, there we go. Sorry. It's Kasha.
Kasha.
Yeah,
So
just like funny cash. Well, it was interesting because at first I have a lot of pain in my physical body, so that's always kind of the thing that stands out at first. And it was just like my one shoulder is screaming at me the whole time, so it's kind of hard to ignore and focus on the other parts of the body. But also, thought it was interesting when trying to differentiate between the emotional body and the mental body. Anxiety came up in both, and I thought, okay, I'm feeling anxiety, so is that an emotion? Or my mind is anxious because I have many things to do, and subconsciously I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna all Tetris stack everything every day this week to get it all done. So yeah, it was interesting. And the breath certainly does reflect that, because after, sitting in stillness for even just a few moments, I felt the need to take a deep sigh and just like release that. So
yeah, beautiful reflections. So the reason I do this exercise is because often we relate to these different bodies as totally separate. Like, well, I'm either feeling this emotion, or I'm feeling this physical sensation, or I'm having this thought, or this breathing pattern is coming up. And we often don't take the time to really see how they all map onto each other and give rise to each other. And what we notice when we start really paying attention is that if I'm having a certain thought pattern, it's likely that my breathing is going to be a certain way. It's also likely that I'm feeling a certain emotion, and it's also likely that I'm feeling certain sensations in my physical body. And when we start to become aware of all of those different layers of our being, then we can have many different access points. So we can, perhaps you're feeling physical constriction and tightness. And if you're able to identify, okay, if this physical sensation were a thought, what thought would it be? Then once you identify the thought, you can go to work on that thought. You can question the thought. It sounds like you all have been working on limiting beliefs, so you already have some insight and access to that. And then through working at the thought, you might notice, oh wow, the physical constriction I was feeling is starting to loosen. Or if you notice the emotion that's present, by giving space and permission for that emotion to really be there, emotion is energy in motion. So by creating the space for that energy to move through, then it'll have a corresponding effect on our mental body, on our physical body, and on our breathing. So I'd invite you to get curious about, wow, okay, so this pain in my shoulder, if this pain in my shoulder were an emotion, what emotion would it be? If it were a thought or a belief, what belief would it be? And when I'm feeling this pain in my shoulder, how does it affect my breathing? And then what happens if I take longer, deeper breaths? Just getting curious about it and seeing how playing on one level of our being can affect even the most like dense, gross physical sensations. Yeah, how does that resonate, Kasha?
That makes total sense. I like the breakdown. So I'm going to have to take some time to do that in the future for sure.
Yeah, just journaling about it and bringing renewed curiosity to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like the curiosity bit.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm not sure if you can see Brandolyn, if you can see raised hands, but Taylor has raised her hand.
Oh, perfect.
Maybe I can only see that because I'm the host.
No, I can see it now, but I forgot to look. Thank you. Okay, Taylor.
Cool. I didn't know about this feature before. This is kind of fun. I just wanted to comment on like how useful the kind of thinking about these things as layers, because for me, I noticed like my body was extremely like tense and like I wasn't breathing normally. And it was because of feeling of overwhelm. But I also realized an emotional side of that was like I was frustrated at myself for feeling overwhelmed. But that awareness only kind of came from teasing apart and understanding the connection. So that was very useful. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm so glad it was useful. And sometimes one layer of our being wants to be really stubborn.
Yeah.
Sometimes an emotion, if we have a challenging relationship to frustration, for example, and we're in resistance to frustration, and it's hard for us to let go of that resistance, then asking, okay, what's the belief that I have about this frustration? Oh, perhaps my belief is that I shouldn't feel frustrated. Is that true? What if I go to work on that belief and question that? Maybe I should feel frustrated. What do I see when I look from that perspective and give myself permission to be frustrated?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. We're not even like half hour in and we're like making ground.
Cool. Oh, I'm glad this is useful. Yeah. I love this meditation. So please take it and do it often. Just checking in. How's my mind? How's my emotions? How's my physical body? How's my breath? And often I have the insight that I need just from doing that observation.
Thank you.
Okay. So transitioning now into our work around self-love and self-acceptance, which we'll come back to this initial meditation. There's a reason why I had us do that. I'd love for each of you to write the following sentence in the chat box and fill it out however you would fill it out. The sentence being, I'll actually write it in the chat box so you can see it. I would fully love and accept myself, but. So what is that belief that you have around why you're not yet ready to fully love and accept yourself? Or what's getting in your way of fully loving and accepting yourself? Another way of saying this, and you can use whichever sentence stem works better for you, is if blank weren't such a problem for me, then I would fully love and accept myself. So pick whichever of those two ad-libs you want to fill out, and then I'd love for you to write your response in the chat box so we can go to work on those. I would fully love and accept myself, but I'm not yet where I want to be in life, physically and mentally. I would fully love and accept myself, but I haven't attained who and where I want to be. seeing a theme here. I would fully love and accept myself, but I still have a lot of work to do. Well, and Maria, I'd love for you to get a little more specific about like, but if this were different, then I could fully love and accept myself. Okay, Alexis says, I would fully love and accept myself, but I'm overweight. Okay, Michael Ann, did I say your name right? I feel like I'm butchering names today.
Yes, you're saying it right. It's Michael Ann.
Michael Ann, okay, awesome. So Michael Ann says, I would fully love and accept myself, but I have spent so long running from my thoughts that I'm lost. Okay. Brooke says, I would fully love and accept myself, but I can't seem to commit to putting in the time and work. Joanne says, if I felt better about the way I look on the outside, I would fully love myself. Kasha, I would fully love and accept myself, but there are personality traits that I do not love about myself. Awesome. Was that everyone? Okay, I would fully love and accept myself, but I have too much anxiety and I don't physically look good. Okay. So first thing, all I want you to do, tiny little tweak here. Some of you might even know it. Does anybody have a guess for the one word that I'm going to ask you all to change in this sentence?
And?
Yeah. So go back and look at what you typed in the chat box and then just change that but to and. Okay. So I would fully love and accept myself, and there are personality traits that I do not love about myself. I would fully love and accept myself, and I've spent so long running from my thoughts that I'm lost. I would fully love and accept myself, and I'm overweight. I would fully love and accept myself, and I still have a lot of work to do. So I'd love to hear from one of you, what shifted in your perception when you changed that but to an and? And if you want to unmute yourself and share, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
So changing the but to and, like, kind of just brought tears to my eyes, because then I realized that no matter where I am, I can love and accept myself, even if I haven't attained where I want to be. One reason I took the plunge to commit to Reconnect Academy is I realized that at my leanest weight and at my heaviest weight, I had the exact same thoughts. So it wasn't about the weight. And every time I thought about, I was like, if I could just find the right food plan, if I could just get my training right, if I could just this or just that, then I will attain what I'm trying to attain. And the realization that my thoughts were the same about myself, whether I was heavy in my opinion or lighter in my opinion, they were the same. And I wasn't loving and accepting where I was then. So it kind of brought me to tears a little.
Yeah. Wow, that's really powerful. And that's a perfect example to distinguish a little exercise I want for us to do now. So thank you so much for that, Amber. So I'd love for all of us to hold both of our hands out in front of us. Hold both hands out in front. Okay, so now right hand over here is going to symbolize our internal state. And our internal state includes our physical sensations, our memories that are arising moment to moment, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs, anything that is arising in our awareness in the moment. So this is the right hand, it's our internal state. Got it? Okay. And then the left hand is symbolizing who we really are. And who we really are is the awareness in which all of this arises. So the exercise we did at the beginning of this, we were witnessing everything that is arising in our mental body, physical body, emotional body, breath body. Yeah. We know that none of those are us because we can look at them. And anything that we can look at is not us because we are the one that is observing. So our thoughts, our emotions, our physical sensations, our memories are all objects of our awareness, but we are no object. We are no thing. How do I know that I'm not this bottle of hibiscus tea? Because I can look at it and observe it, and anything that I can look at cannot be me. So similarly, our thoughts are an object of our awareness. They're not who we are. Our physical body is an object of our awareness. It's not who we are. So left hand is the ever-present awareness in which everything arises. So left hand, who we really are, right hand, our internal state, the objects of our awareness. Everyone clear on that? Okay. So now we are going to clasp our right and left hand together. And now our right hand is going to shake, and this is symbolizing intensity in our internal state. So this is symbolizing having a limiting belief arise, symbolizing having anxiety arise, having stress, having doubt, or even having joy and euphoria arise. Doesn't matter what it is, it's just there's objects in our awareness and we're experiencing intensity. Okay? So the right hand is shaking. What happens to the left hand? What happens to who we really are? Anybody can unmute yourself and share. What happens when the right hand shakes? What happens to the left hand?
It also shakes.
Yes. Was that Alexis that said that? Oh no, that was Kasha. Who said that? Oh, okay, my clan. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it shakes right along with it. And when these two hands are clasped together, can the left hand do anything but shake when the right hand is shaking? No. It's in direct and immediate effect to whatever is happening with the right hand, because the two are clasped, because they are identified with each other. Yeah. So now we're going to unclasp the hands and create any amount of spaciousness between the right and the left hand. It can be a centimeter, it can be 3 feet. It's irrelevant how much space, as long as there's some space between the right and the left hand. Okay. So now shake the right hand. So again, anxiety, stressful thoughts, fear, doubt, there's intensity happening in the internal state. What happens to the left hand?
Stagnant.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. So the left hand is free. The left hand is free to choose who to be in every moment, regardless of what the right hand is doing. So why I distinguish this is because which hand has everything to do with self-love and self-acceptance? The right hand or the left hand? Yeah, the left hand. The right hand actually has nothing to do with it. The right hand is completely irrelevant to self-love and self-acceptance, because the right hand is just objects of our awareness, which is not us.
So just being a being is.
So the left hand, when it's not clasped with the right hand, meaning when we're disidentified from our internal state, when we no longer are stuck in the illusion that our internal state is who we are, then we're free to choose who we be in every moment. And self-love and self-acceptance are unconditional ways of being, meaning we can choose to be self-loving and self-accepting in the face of any adversity, any circumstance, no matter what is arising in our mind, no matter what is arising in our emotions. We have the freedom to choose to be self-loving and self-accepting. The reason why so many of us struggle with self-love and self-acceptance is because we're living like this. So what we're doing is trying to stop the right hand from shaking. Mm-hmm. Well, once my anxiety goes away, then I can be self-loving and self-accepting. Once I no longer have judgmental thoughts about my body, then I can be self-loving and self-accepting. Once I lose weight, then I can be self-loving and self-accepting. What's the fallacy in not thinking? Anyone? What are we getting wrong when we think we just need to stop the right hand from shaking?
I mean, if I can just I don't know if this is the correct answer or not, but what is coming up for me is that a lot of the time, I think I guess it's referred to sometimes as outcome versus process kind of thing. So I always hinge my inner peace or happiness, whatever you want to call it, on some sort of external thing. And if I can only get there, then that will happen and I'll be okay. But then that keeps moving around, and it's you're chasing a carrot rather than actually understanding that it's rooted in something that's just always there, not
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because then the thing that we blame for not being self-loving and self-accepting just continually shapeshifts. Mm. So, for example, which I think some of you, a lot of you can relate to. My version of this was believing that I just needed to lose weight before I could be self-loving and self-accepting, which led to anorexia and led to me starving myself and being emaciated. And then as soon as I lost all this weight and was super unhealthy, then the belief that arose was, well, it's not that people actually love me for me, it's that they love me for the way that I look. So now I don't love myself because I believe that I have to be this weight in order for people to love me. So it started out being, I just need to lose weight. And then as soon as that couldn't be a reason or an excuse for me to not love myself anymore, then it just shapeshifted into something else. The point being, it has nothing to do with the right hand. It has everything to do with us giving ourselves the permission and freedom to be loving and accepting of ourselves in every moment. Yeah. So when we look back at these sentences that we wrote in the beginning, I would fully love and accept myself, but I have too much anxiety. What do you see about that? When you think about, rather than trying to make the anxiety go away, instead making the anxiety an object of the ever-present awareness that we are, which is free at every moment to choose. So when we identify with our internal state, then it's impossible to be self-loving and self-accepting. But as soon as we create that space between the two, then it's like, oh, anxiety is happening over here in the right hand. Okay, cool. How do I, the freedom to choose who I be in every single moment, want to choose to react to this anxiety? Oh, you know what? What if the anxiety is an opportunity for me to love myself deeper? What if this anxiety is exactly that which is wanting to be loved and accepted? Or if I felt better about the way I look on the outside, I would fully love myself. So, oh, what if that judgment that I have about my body is actually that which I'm wanting to love and accept in this moment? The way that we get stronger at being self-loving and self-accepting is not by getting the right hand to stop shaking. That's not the way, that's not the path. The way that we become more powerful at choosing to be self-loving and self-accepting is by accepting ourselves when the right hand is shaking. When it's shaking the most intensely, that's the best opportunity to practice being self-loving and self-accepting. Okay, so I would fully love and accept myself, but I have spent so long running from my thoughts that I'm lost. So what if it's exactly those thoughts that you've been running from that are most wanting to be loved and accepted? What if it's your body that's most wanting to be loved and accepted? The way that I like to think about it, and you don't have to believe that this is true, but it's a perspective to look from that gives access to new insights. So the way that I like to think about it is that I have a soul contract with my body, I have a soul contract with my emotions, I have a soul contract with my thoughts and with all the circumstances that happen in my life. And they're happening for me so that I can get what I came for, get what I came to this planet for, which is an opportunity to practice being loving and accepting. We don't build muscle by lifting air. We build muscle by lifting weight. So if we think about the things that it's hardest for us to love and accept about ourselves, that's the equivalent of a heavy weight. So we're going to get that much stronger, that much quicker when we choose to do the heavy lifting. So I would fully love and accept myself. Yeah, Amber, I was just about to read yours.
Okay,
actually.
I was just gonna, the thoughts that I'm just thinking when you're saying all this. So you're saying instead of like so desperately trying to change the situation or our body or the environment or other people or our anxiety, are you saying to lean into that and lean into the uncomfortable, lean into accepting and loving and basically embracing all of that.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. When there's something that's arising in our awareness that we want to avoid, it's because we're unwilling to be with it. And whatever we're unwilling to be with is just going to keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back, until we're finally willing to meet it and be with it. And it'll shapeshift and come back in different forms. But it keeps coming back until we get the lesson. And we're like, oh, it's not about fixing and changing this aspect of myself. It's about loving this aspect of myself. My higher self chose this aspect of myself so that I would have the opportunity to really practice loving and accepting. Not just when it's easy, but when it's hard.
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. And it's just a huge mental shift of like reversing the role and like gazing at it from above and being like, this is what it is. This isn't me. This isn't just my struggle that I can't overcome myself. This is just a struggle that I can make friends with in a way, or learn to love, or I'm sure you're going to give us ways we can practice doing this. I'm hoping.
Yeah. So are you willing to share with us what specifically you're seeing is wanting to be loved by you?
I think one, it's uncomfortable to even, it's uncomfortable to sit with it. It's uncomfortable. But I would say one example that just comes to mind for me is just when I turn to food to soothe me, to numb me, and to protect me instead of me facing what else I need to do, or facing maybe how I was hurt, or facing just being uncomfortable, or feeling like I failed in another area in my, family life or professional life or whatever area, and then turning to that. So that's a thing that I would like gone from my life, but I haven't really like gazed at it thinking, instead of wanting it completely gone, but maybe I need to look at it differently.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is
Amber? Oh, it's okay. I was just going to say, Amber, like, and to everyone, that's something, Tara has, I talk to Tara a lot about is about how I kind of stopped living. Like, I don't do anything because of what I look like on the outside. And I don't enjoy things. I don't do things with my kids as much because I'm so conscious of what I look like on the outside, my body, and I'm overweight. And she's always kind of said to me that it's okay that you feel that way, but it's also okay to enjoy life like at the same time. Like you can know that you're working on that, but at the same time, love life and enjoy it. Because, so it is leaning into it, and it's also, knowing it's okay, knowing that you're working on it, and that, just, I guess, really leaning in and knowing that it's going to be okay. And, I guess just knowing that you can still enjoy things even though you have these feelings about yourself. I don't know if that's right, Tara, if I'm explaining it right.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, Joe. So yeah, what Joe is speaking to basically is, she said it, like, it is okay to have this part of yourself and to see a higher vision for yourself, to say, I would love to be in a space where I don't have all of this anxiety. I would love to be in space where I'm not overeating, or and it's okay to have that higher vision and also accept exactly where you are right now. And in this space of accepting where you are right now, like Joe said, like allowing yourself, sometimes it's, like Brandon said, you're always like, I'm trying to get out of this discomfort. I'm trying to get out of this space. I'm trying to have a different body. I'm trying to have a different life. I'm trying to have a different thought. And it's like, what if I can live my life right now? Like, go to the dinner with your kids, go to the beach with your friends, go to the thing, continue doing life, and allow that discomfort to just be there. It's almost like you're wearing a backpack. It's like, okay, like this might feel a little heavier today because I'm not in like my best place, but like I can still walk around and be with my friends and have a fun day, and I just happen to have this backpack on. And like, you know, the rest of everything can still go on. And so that's, I think, what Joe is speaking to.
That is, thank you for explaining that. Yes.
You did a great job.
I think it's uncovering another limiting belief for me. I noticed that like I don't believe that I can live a fulfilling life like just right here, right now.
Yeah. So I'd love for each of you to identify what emotion you have the most resistance to of all the emotions. So Amber, with what you shared before, what would you say is the emotion that you most attempt to avoid?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure. I need a minute.
Yeah, so I can put some in the chat box to give some food for thought. So shame, fear, anxiety, insecurity, jealousy, anger, mistrust, sadness, disappointment, frustration. So looking at this list and asking yourself, which emotion of these emotions, loneliness, let's add that, it's probably my winner. Which of these emotions do you have the most resistance to? Another way of saying it is, which of these emotions are you most unwilling to be with? Which emotion do you most try to avoid? Really sitting with and really feeling and letting it up. And if you can write in the chat box which emotion you have the most resistance to, fear and loneliness. Yeah. What else? And feel free to name an emotion that I didn't list. There's many others. All right. Another fear and loneliness. Shame. Mm-hmm. Anxiety. Disappointment, inadequacy, shame, loneliness. Okay. So there are two different types of pain. We don't normally talk about the two different types of pain. One type of pain is what's called the pain of presence. The pain of presence is the type of pain that we're all used to talking about. So that is the real, in the moment, lived experience of pain. So for example, if we're feeling lonely, there's an intensity that comes along with the feeling of loneliness. And when we get really present to the feeling of loneliness, we'll find that it's a combination of a set of bodily sensations and thought patterns. Those two things together pretty much equal what we call the emotion of loneliness. Yet most of us don't take the time to slow down enough to really get present to, wow, what is the intricacy of the sensations of shame in my body? Where do I feel shame in my body? How is it moving? Does it feel like dense energy in my stomach? Does it feel like heat in my heart? Does it feel like constriction in my throat? Are my palms cold? Do I notice that my heartbeat is beating faster? Most of us don't take the time to really list out the observables of the emotion. We just think, oh, shame, bad, escape. Loneliness, bad, wrong. How do I not feel this? Sadness, I'm not supposed to feel sad. What do I need to do to make myself feel happy? Fear, this isn't okay. How do I stop being afraid? Insecurity, this is bad. Gotta fix it. So as soon as we label an emotion, then because what our society tells us, we have an immediate value judgment of whether it's good or bad, whether it's allowed or not allowed. And if it's not allowed, then we start doing something called experiential avoidance. And experiential avoidance is all of the different creative ways that each of us have come up with to try to numb and avoid and escape our emotions. So for some of us, experiential avoidance looks like online shopping, or watching 6 hours of a show on Netflix, or gambling, or drinking, or doing drugs, or over-exercising, or overeating, or calorie counting, or judging our bodies, or isolating ourselves, or yelling at our partner. All sorts of different ways of experiential avoidance. And whenever we turn to a coping mechanism, or experiential avoidance, what we're trying to do is turn down the intensity of the unwanted experience. So the first type of pain is the pain of presence. It's like the actual sensations that are arising in our body when we feel fear or anxiety or shame or guilt or insecurity. It's the intensity of the body sensations and the thoughts. That's the first type of pain. The second type of pain is called pain of absence. And pain of absence is what we miss out on when we're attempting to avoid the pain of presence. So it's who we miss out on being when we're spending our lives attempting to escape intensity. When we're trying to stop the right hand from shaking. Because what are we if the right hand stops shaking? When's the only time that the right hand is going to stop shaking?
When we're not alive?
Yeah, or when we're in a coma. We're so numbed out and checked out from life that we don't feel anything. I don't want any of those three options. I don't know about the rest of you. Does anybody want that? Does anybody actually want the right hand to stop shaking? Okay. So anytime that we think that it's about the right hand stopping shaking, we're giving our power away to that which isn't us. We're giving our power away to something outside of ourselves. It's as if I walked out in the morning and I looked up at the sky and I was like, damn it, I really wanted to be loving today. I thought today was gonna be the day that I was gonna love myself, but it's cloudy again. Jeez, can't I get a sunny day here? My goodness. Once the sky parts, once it's sunny, then I'll love myself. Right? It's absurd, it's ridiculous. Because the clouds actually have nothing to do with us. And if we believe that we need to wait for the weather to change in order for us to be who we're committed to being, we're living our lives in reactive mode, giving power to something outside of our control. And just like there's nothing that we can do about the clouds, there's really nothing that we can do about our internal state most of the time. When I'm sad, I'm sad. If I'm grieving, I'm grieving. If I'm lonely, I'm lonely. And whatever we resist persists. So the more unwilling I am to feel that emotion, the more power it's going to have over me. So the pain of absence is the life that we miss out on when we're trying to stop the right hand from shaking. And we're waiting and waiting and waiting. When's it gonna stop shaking? When's it gonna stop shaking? When's it gonna stop shaking? And day after day, we're missing out on living the life that we really wanna live and choosing to be who we're committed to being while the right hand shakes. So I'd love for each of you to ask yourself and look for yourself. What do I miss out on when I'm avoiding feeling anger? When I'm avoiding feeling guilt, shame, anxiety, loneliness, disappointment, insecurity? Who do I not give myself permission to be when I'm wasting energy in the act of resisting reality? When I'm in an argument with the clouds? What do I miss out on? Who do I miss out on being? We've already identified that many of us are missing out on being the self-loving, self-accepting people that we want to be. What else are we missing out on? What's the pain of absence? When we're stuck in these coping mechanisms, in this experiential avoidance, what's the impact of that?
A lack of joy.
Mm-hmm.
Just not living happy and to your fullest potential. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we miss out on getting to create our lives because we're in reactive mode. We're waiting for the sky to change, for the clouds to change, so we can start being who we're committed to being.
Can I ask a question just about you mentioned like we don't want to not have our anxieties and our struggles and everything because essentially like what's the point of life if you're just like I don't know, that you're not working on anything, I suppose. But so how do you reconcile that with like still trying to get to your best self place? I don't know. I'm not really articulating this
No, that's
well.
perfect. That's a great question. It's a great question. So one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Matt Kahn, I recommend that you all check him out if you haven't already. He has a book called Whatever Arises, Love That, and it's fantastic. He's fantastic. He has a video online called Respecting the Shadow, which I also highly recommend that you all watch. And in that video, he talks about what if, again, this is totally hypothetical. We're not believing that this is true. It's just a perspective to look from. So he talks about what if on the day that we die, rather than having people from our life come to testify to say the kind of person that we were, what if each of our emotions comes and takes the stand? So what if sadness gets on the stand and speaks about how you related to sadness your whole life? What would sadness say about you? What would anxiety say about how you treated it? What would loneliness say about how you treated it? What would insecurity say about how you treated it? Will they say, geez, every time I came around, pretend I'm anxiety speaking. Anxiety says, every time I came around, she hated me. She judged me. She tried to push me out as soon as possible. She was in total resistance to me, just criticizing me, trying to get rid of me. She was so mean to me. Or would anxiety say, every time I came around, I was met with such understanding, such forgiveness, and such love. She held such compassionate space and gave me all the permission in the world to feel the way that I was feeling, and really understood me and allowed for me to process the energy that I was processing. She held such beautiful space for me. So to me, true inner work is not about getting the right hand to stop shaking. It's not about having a sunny day. It's about how do we react and relate to every internal experience. And the places that we notice we have resistance, that's our work. There's the possibility for transformation. It's not about making the insecurity or the anxiety go away. It's about holding compassionate, loving, accepting, forgiving space for it. And ironically, what you all might find is that when we focus on transforming our relationship to thoughts and emotions, they lose their power over us and they stop coming so frequently because they've been heard and understood. It's like a little child that's scared in the middle of the night and runs into their parents' room and says, I had a terrible nightmare, I'm so scared, I'm so scared. If that child says, or if the parent says, you're stupid, you shouldn't feel scared, that's dumb to feel scared, and you're weird for feeling scared, that's not gonna help the child. That's not gonna make that fear go away. It's just gonna make the child feel more alone and more scared. So what if we could treat each emotion like a scared little child that's crawling into bed with us in the middle of the night? Does that answer your question, Taylor?
Yeah, thank you. That totally, like, I don't feel like there's a tension between living in alignment with your truth or whatever and still holding space for everything, because I think that's actually, they're very much integrated. And again, if you were just running, then you're not getting to that place. If there's not a place, but like you're not living from that source because, you know, the pain of absence. And yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. But oh, what was the man's name? Matt
Kahn.
Matt Kahn.
And then respecting the shadow.
Awesome.
And whatever arises, love that. And my book, while we're talking about books, is The Achievement Trap. The people pleaser, overachiever, and perfectionist's guide to freedom and true success.
Cool.
Is that possible?
You want to check that out, yeah.
Can I ask you a question about this? So when we have these emotions come, or say we feel ourselves tunneling or spiraling and we're in that dark place that we don't like, what are some ways that you would suggest talking yourself through that? Like, what are some words, or just, is it just starting out being aware of that? And then I'm just wondering, how am I going to love this person or this area? How am I going to really love and embrace that? And I know it's a practice. I know it's, step by step, but.
Yeah. Most often when we're triggered and we're spiraling, we're reacting to the past. So often it's not actually something that's happening right there and then, but it's our mind projecting onto that scenario every time in the past that we felt that way. So a stupid example, if I tell my partner to pick up oranges at the grocery store and he comes home without the oranges, and I have this like big overwhelming reaction to that. And it's like, you don't love me, you don't listen to me, you don't care about me, why didn't you get the oranges? It's not actually that it's about the oranges. It's about every time in my life that I've ever felt unheard and misunderstood and alone and unloved. So understanding that and knowing that it's likely something even from our childhood that's arising in that moment, holding space for that emotion to be whatever it needs to be. And telling the inner child, telling the past versions of ourselves, it's not even necessary to identify what happened in the past. Sometimes that's helpful to be like, oh yeah, this is my story about nobody listens to me and it came from in third grade when blah, blah, blah happened. Sometimes that's helpful. It's not necessary though. It's just necessary to recognize, okay, my inner child is having a moment. She's really struggling here. And what she needs to know is that it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to feel alone. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. There's nothing wrong or bad. There's nothing wrong here. And then getting curious, what do you need to hear? For me, it's pretty much just always helpful for me to talk to my inner child. Even if I'm not clear about why it's an inner child wound, it's just helpful for me to picture my inner child. Because it's easier for me to be really loving and compassionate to a little girl than it is for me to be loving and compassionate to my adult self that I think should have it all figured out. So just asking that inner child, that emotion, what do you most need right now? What do you need to hear right now? And taking 15 to 20 deep belly breaths, huge game changer. As soon as we take 15 to 20 deep belly breaths, the nervous system knows that there's not a real threat. There's not a real danger. Because if there were a mountain lion right there, I would not be able to take 15 to 20 deep belly breaths. So it automatically shifts on the parasympathetic nervous system, and we shift from operating from our lizard brain, our brainstem, to our prefrontal cortex. So all of a sudden we're able to see things more clearly and more rationally. Our whole body starts to work to calm our system down. And you know how before we talked about how the emotional body, physical body, mental body, and breath body are all communicating with each other. I find that the easiest access point is the breath body. So taking 15 to 20 deep breaths, maybe it'll take 30, maybe it'll take 40. But stopping, walking away from whatever situation you're in, which often is the hardest part, to recognize, oh gosh, I'm going into trigger response. I'm going into fight or flight mode. I'm going into red zone. I'm gonna stop and take 15 to 20 to 30 to 40 deep breaths. That's the very, very short version of that. The longer version of it is to really get curious about the themes running through your different triggers. So distilling down, if you're noticing you're triggered, like what is the common denominator here? What am I feeling in this situation that I feel a lot? What's the story that I have here about this situation? And what's the most distilled down version? And almost always you'll find something along the lines of, I don't belong, I'm not loved, I'm not safe, I'm not wanted, something like that. And that's the core wounding story. And once we're clear about what our core wounding stories are, we can work with them in particular. that's kind of the longer trajectory. How is this resonating, Amber?
Yeah, that was perfect. That answered a lot of questions actually. So thank you. Yeah. Really helpful.
Yeah. And a big piece of this is remembering who we're committed to being. So if we're in a moment of believing like, oh, I can't love myself right now because look at how I look. This isn't lovable. Stopping, taking 15 to 20 deep breaths, and then asking ourselves, who am I committed to being? What
on the topic of that, oh, sorry. Can I follow up afterward?
Yeah, what did I come into this life to practice? What ways of being did I come into this life to practice? And I'll just add a little blurb here about it's never about the circumstances. It's never about your body, ever, ever, ever. Never, never, never. It's never actually about your body. It's always about the emotion that you feel about your body and your resistance to that emotion. So if it's shame that you feel about your body, guilt, insecurity, anxiety, embarrassment, the practice is actually about learning to be with that emotion rather than trying to stop the right hand from shaking or fix or change your body. Okay, yeah, Taylor, please.
Oh, okay. So I really like what you're saying about like asking yourself, who did you come in, like who are you committed to being? Because for me, one thing I've noticed lately in working toward like just part of the Reconnect Academy, there's like I'm having struggles with that one right now. Okay, I'll try English again. Visualization, there we go. So like these different worksheets and like thinking about our best self. And I like how you said committed, because that kind of emphasizes this evolving, ongoing thing. Because I feel like there's this little thought in my head that's like, here we go again, Taylor. You tried this like last Thursday. And like, yeah, I don't know. What would you say to like that little voice? Because I feel like there's two voices in my head that hold tension, because there's one that really wants to go forward and embrace these anxieties and get curious. And then there's this negative one that I almost give more credence to, because it's like, I don't know, I feel like I believe it more, perhaps because it's more familiar to, I don't know, but it's just, how do we shift in a way to kind of like dislodge from that?
Yeah. So what the fear voice always says is that if you're not in resistance to reality, then something bad is going to happen. So if you're not resisting this anxiety, then this anxiety is going to snowball and it's going to take over your entire life and nobody's going to love you anymore and you're going to end up broken in jail. Like that's what the subconscious fear voice says. It tries to convince you that resisting reality is productive and helpful. And it's not. Whatever we resist persists. But the fear voice is always going to tell you that. The fear voice is always going to tell you, if you accept your body, then you're just going to not care anymore about your health, and your health is just going to deteriorate until you die. That's what the fear voice says. When in reality, shame is the thing that is preventing us from being committed to our health. It's our unwillingness to be with that shame that's the culprit. Our internal experience cannot hurt us. Shame has never hurt or killed anybody. Anxiety has never hurt or killed anybody. Jealousy, insecurity, embarrassment, none of these emotions have ever, in the history of time, hurt or killed anybody. What hurts and kills people is our resistance to them. Because in our resistance and in our experiential avoidance, we turn to these coping mechanisms that are really detrimental. Because we think that if we don't resist the shame, then it's going to overpower us. When really it's our resistance to the shame that is overpowering us. Does that make sense? So it's really flipping this belief on its head.
Yeah.
And circling back to, and I know we're out of time here, so I'll try to wrap up quick. This workshop could be 4 hours and we'd still have more to cover. With pain of presence and pain of absence, the rule here is that the more we try to avoid the pain of presence, the more we try to avoid shame, the more we try to avoid sadness, the more we try to avoid insecurity, the more we try to avoid the pain of presence, the more pain we get. particularly in the form of pain of absence. The more we try to avoid the pain of presence, the more pain we get in the form of pain of absence, meaning the more pain we're in because we're missing out on the lives that we really want to live. And that hurts. It hurts to not be who we're committed to being. It hurts to not fulfill those soul contracts, to not expand into the ways of being that our higher self most wants to be. That hurts more than anything. It hurts more than any pain of presence. So the key here is willingness. If you imagine that there's two knobs and one knob is the pain knob or the intensity knob, and the other knob is the willingness knob, most of us have spent our whole lives trying to turn down the pain knob. And that's where all of our energy and attention is focused. And meanwhile, we're missing out on the lives that we want to live. So what we want to do is take our hand completely off the pain knob, because pain is an inextricable part of the human existence. You can't get rid of it unless you completely numb yourself out, which is not what we want. So rather than paying any attention to the pain knob or the intensity knob, what we want to do is turn our attention to the willingness knob. And slowly but surely begin to turn up our willingness to be with whatever experiences we've been avoiding and resisting. So if any of you want some follow-up homework from this session, I invite you to take those emotions that we listed out earlier. So disappointment, shame, fear, loneliness, mistrust, sadness, frustration, insecurity, jealousy. Take those emotions and next to each one, write on a scale of 1 to 10, how willing you've been to be with that emotion. So a level 1 willingness means that every time that emotion arises, you run like hell. You do everything in your power to avoid and escape it. Whether that's drinking to numb or eating to numb or obsessing about someone or something to numb, that's a level 1 willingness. A level 10 willingness is, oh, hi, anxiety. Hello. Wow, how are you? What do you actually feel like? What do you actually feel like in my body? What are all of the sensations that I can observe and name that is this thing that I call anxiety? What are the corresponding thoughts that go along with you? What are the breathing patterns that go along with you? It's okay to be here, anxiety. It's okay. I'm here for you. You're safe to be here. You're safe to be how you are. It's okay to feel this way. So it's an opening to it, a leaning into it. And what happens when we lean into it is that the intensity gets more intense for like a minute. And then it gets less intense. But we have to be willing to be with it getting more intense for that short period of time, so that the emotion, the energy in motion, can move through our being and complete itself. So I invite you to go through all of these quote unquote unwanted emotions and list, how willing have I been on a scale of 1 to 10 to be with that emotion? If that emotion took the stand, what would it say about me? How would it say that I treated it? And now your homework is to live your life such that when those emotions take the stand, they say that you were so generous, so kind, so loving, so accepting, so forgiving, so compassionate. Yeah?
Yeah. That was so good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'd love to hear from each of you as a wrap up here. What's your biggest takeaway from the session today? And if you could just each write it in the chat box.
Thank you, Brandlin. You are such a gift.
Thank you for creating this beautiful space. What an incredible group of people you gathered here.
Right? Aren't they the most amazing ever?
Yeah, they are. So awesome. Thank you for having me. What was your biggest takeaway?
Mine?
Yeah.
I loved when you were talking about what would your emotions say at your funeral. I love that idea because it is so much about the relationship to certain emotions And I just have never like had that, just like that thought experiment. Like I love thought experiments like that. Like I'm all about the journal prompts forever and ever. So like that kind of prompt is like, I love sitting with that and thinking about what my emotions would say. And it's great to notice the growth that I've had in that. Like when I think about like 6-7 years ago, like so many of those emotions they would say something so different than they would now. But also to think about like, kind of like you said, like for you, it's like the core one is loneliness. I'm trying to like parse out what mine is. And I want to say it's fear is the one that I still struggle with the most. But I think that fear is such a big blanket term, and I think that it's more complicated and nuanced than that, and I'm trying to figure out what fear it is, but it's definitely fear. So anyways, that just, that had me thinking, and curiosity, curiosity is turned on that. So anyways, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for those reflections. So yeah, let's see, Amber says, mind blown, awesome. The way that Tara set this up was it's supposed to be the best hour of your life. I'm glad it was valuable. There's some high expectations there. I love it. I've always tried to fix or hide the emotion and avoid it at all costs. Now I realize I get to love it and love me. Yeah, how exciting. So each time there's an unwanted emotion, it's like a little alarm clock going off. Like, oh, it's your reminder to practice being self-loving and self-accepting. Remember, this is who you came here to be. Remember, this is your time to practice. It's like the little Duolingo messages that pop up on my iPhone. Time to practice Spanish, except it's time to practice self-love. So pain of absence is greater than pain of presence. Focus on willingness rather than on the pain itself. Awesome. Being compassionate with the emotions I do not like and sitting with them and being there for them. Beautiful. Biggest takeaway for me is remembering who I'm committed to being and what ways of being I did come into this life to practice. Also love the emotion testimonies. And then the funeral concept really resonated in a big way, and also directly identify shame as my core struggle. The fear voice says, if you are not in resistance to reality, then something bad is going to happen. Wow. Also, it's never about your body. It's about the emotion and your resistance to that emotion. Big new awarenesses. I'm so glad. Thank you so much, each of you, for spending this hour and 15 minutes with me. I'm going to put my email and Instagram handle. If any of you have follow-up questions from today's session, feel free to reach out to me, or if you want to share with me how all of this is integrating over the next couple days, I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you all for your willingness to share and your openness.
Yes, thank you, Brandolyn, and
thank you.
And everyone, I would encourage any of Brandolyn's offerings, whether it is her retreats or her book. I have her book on my bookshelf right here. As a former recovering forever people pleaser and overachiever and all the things, her book was written specifically for me. And I just can't more highly recommend any of the things that she offers and does in this world. So thank you again,
Thank you so much. Love you.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.